Hey, folks, welcome to Breakdown, the Poet and the Poems, a show where a poet helps us to break down poetry as inspiration and motivation for our everyday life journeys. My name is Tamara J. Madison, and I am your host. And I'm excited to share with you that for this month's feature, we have poet Amanda Johnston and her book, Another Way to Say Enter. This book, this little bitty black and white book, is filled with color and it's a stick of dynamite. And I have to say, the interview inspired me as a woman, as a mother, as an activist, as an author, a poet, and it even inspired me as a hussy. So if you're curious and you want to find out more, go ahead on and hit like and share. Grab your cup of tea, coffee, snack, whatever you need, and join us for Breakdown. So welcome, welcome, Amanda Johnston. I'm so excited. That's why I'm stuttering and everything over my words, because I'm so excited about getting into your poetry. Thank you for being a guest poet on Breakdown.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our talk and to talk about anything. I'm ready. You've made me feel more than welcome.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to introduce you first, but I want to, instead of introducing you formally, I want to just jump into, because this is a show that is for poetry lovers, whether they write poetry or not, and for everyday folk that I am hoping will discover the magic of poetry, right? Because you don't have to be at a university and you don't have to be a slam artist to see the value of poetry in your life. So
Mhm.
rather than going through a formal bio, which we can put in the description of the program, I want to ask you, how did you get started in poetry? Out of all of the things that you could be doing, how did you get started in poetry?
Oh wow. Okay. So there's two answers to that.
Hmm.
So but since you say you want the real,
The
right?
real, real.
The
Mhm.
real. Okay. So I'll start then the other one that is the more, how do I say, it is when I started writing seriously as a professional writer, would
Mhm.
be that I would have said that I went to Kentucky with my husband. I
Mhm.
started working at the community college there, and I
Mhm.
started writing with a literary group there, which is true.
Mhm.
But if you really back before that, when I was young in middle school, I would write rhymes, I would write raps all the time. And I just knew I was going to be a rap artist. And I actually had a deal and I had representation, but I also had a hard head.
Mhm.
And so that wasn't my path. It didn't work out for me, but the ear of the language and the musicality stayed with me. And
Mhm.
so I didn't do anything with it other than, writing for myself, little things here and there. But what brought it out again was when we moved to Kentucky and I started writing with this literary community.
Mhm.
It was still there. And it manifested in a new way, and the hunger for poetry just built and built and built. But like I said, if I'm keeping it 100, it was rap. It was
Mhm.
when I was young and writing raps.
Mhm.
I'd say on the school bus with my friends.
That's one of the things that I think about all the time, is that poetry is our language. A lot of us have been fooled into thinking that it's not, because they think that it belongs in a university or a particular institution or on a show platform. But poetry is our language, especially for people of color, right? Because we have tonal languages, we speak in imagery all of the time. And a lot of people don't see the relationships between rap and hip hop and poetry and spoken word poetry, poetry for the stage, poetry for the page, and the way your grandmama used to talk, right? And paint pictures with her words. So that's one of the things that I want to do with this show. I want to talk about that magic of language that is a part of all of us, whether people are writing or not, right? So thank you for the real, real. Okay. So let's jump into, this is Breakdown, the poet and the poem. So we're going to jump into one of your books, which is another way to say enter. Let me see if I can show it. Yeah, there we go. All right. So folks, you can see this is the itty bitty book. And I want you to see that me and this book have a relationship now. We got some things going on. And I want you to see how small it is. But there is a saying that dynamite comes in small packages. It's small and it's black and white. And I think that that's a little bit deceptive because
Mm.
it is dynamite and it's full of color, right? So we're going to discuss her particular book, Another Way to Say Enter. And I first want to read the official description of the book, okay? In Amanda Johnston's debut collection, Another Way to Say Enter, this is an excerpt of it. Readers are offered glimpses of scenes as if peering through windows and doors. These poems are both visceral and spiritual, reminding the reader that entry, departure, and the inevitable return is a journey that must be felt, not just imagined. Now, for those of you who are watching, that is the official description that I asked for, right, of the book. Here is my statement on the book. You ready?
Oh yeah.
Okay. As tough as it is tender, another way to say enter is lovingly gracious and merciful with our human flaws, graciously returning us to our primordial glory.
Mm. Thank you. That's beautiful.
And I want to read it again because I actually missed one word. As tough as it is tender, another way to say enter is lovingly gracious and merciful. That's the word I missed. With our human flaws, graciously returning us to our primordial glory. Okay. And so that was the description that came to me as I was studying your book, because I was like, okay, if I had to put this book into a description for me, what would it be? And that's what it was for me. And so for people who have not read this book, I want to say the reason why I'm saying that is because in this book, and I jotted down, I'm looking at my notes, folks, so that's why I'm looking down. There are poems about the vagabond, about the homeless. There is a poem in here for a pole dancer. There's the poem for the absent father, about the absent father, the judgmental mother, the targeted Black man, the guilty murderous mother, right? So there's all of these people that we consider to be on the edge or the outcast of society. And you lovingly remind us, right? That they are part of everything. And that's one of the things, and that's what I mean by glory. Sometimes when we look at something that we perceive as wicked or inappropriate or whatever, we forget about the glory in it, the godliness, the sacred of it, right? And that's what I really, really love about your poem. So in hindsight, because it's been a few years now, how would you describe your book?
Oh my gosh.
Mm. Isn't
It's
that a
a
hard
very,
question?
it really is.
Mm.
But I want to say that the importance of naming things, and that you took the time to go back to say merciful specifically.
Mhm.
Um, it's an interesting connection. My middle name is Mercedes, so that means merciful. And not many people know that's my middle name. I haven't gone by it since I was in middle school. And I don't know, we're just going to go back. We're going to keep going back to that moment in time. But for me, that's what the book was.
Mhm.
I don't know how to describe it other than the feeling it was for me. It was a opening up into some challenging topics, some difficulties that in the end, I said, this is all it. This is all life. This is all, from my life. I definitely subscribe to Sharon Olds, I'm the I. There's not the separation from the speaker unless it's apparent, like it's a persona poem or something. But
Mhm.
even then, it's coming through my lens. So I had to sit with this book and say, this is my book. This is being birthed from me. So what do I have to say? What do
Mhm.
I have to share to be able to open up and move into the world with this work and make a path for new work and for what's next? Um, so yeah, for me, the poems are that they are a way into myself, through myself, and to connect with others outwardly. What does that mean?
Mm.
It means something different to each person that reads it.
Okay. So, for people who may watch this interview, I want them to know this isn't scripted. I have an agenda of the way that I wanted to approach the interview, but Amanda hasn't seen it at all. So, in studying your book and preparing for this interview, let me show you what I did. I decided I wanted to talk to the poet seeking self, the poet as abandoned daughter, the poet as lover, the poet as hussy, the poet as, right?
Yeah,
And so your
all the
description of it lets me know that I was on point and that I was following along. So let's start with the poet seeking self, right? The poet seeking self. I noticed that there was a connection between breaking from the cell you decorated nicely, page 3, and lock, page 16, but they were separated in the book. So I want to ask you, would you read those two poems back to back?
sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Breaking from the cell you've decorated nicely. Force the skeleton key into the antique lock. Feel the tumbler resist, then give. Your hands shake at the opening, a freedom unleashed. Lock. The old farm lock has seen more than 100 seasons. I hold it in my hand, trace my name in a century of dirt and rust. I know this closure, this need to hold firm, another way to say, enter and turn me loose.
So, what does the word enter mean for you?
Mm. Again, that's when we look at an opening,
Mm.
right? Sometimes, or if you visualize the sign above a door and it says, enter or exit, but it still can be the same space.
Mm.
So for me, it was about, in that in particular, it was about entering into my full self. What is
Mhm.
my whole self? And understanding what that is so that I can then emerge on the other side, go through it. Um, but for some, it is ultimately an exit or it can be that entrance. Like I said, it depends on where you're at with it. For me, though, the freedom of being opened and exiting to be freed,
Mhm.
right? I was entering into that freedom
Mhm.
was the feeling that I had in writing that.
Mhm. That was one of the things that I was thinking about because I was kind of puzzled for a minute. I was like, why is this a title? Why is this a title? And I had to read the book several times. And then I made the connection between those two poems with themselves, each other, and then with the title. And I was thinking about how so many of us are running around trying to go in every door except the
Mhm.
door within and within ourselves. And I just wanted to say thank you for giving us an example of the courage that it takes to do this, but also showing us what it's like to be on the other side and that you can actually survive because many of us won't pop that lock because we're
Mhm.
so afraid of what we think is behind it. And I think one of the things that this book so courageously does is that it takes us in the door and it gives us courage to look within that door of ourselves, right? Because I kept thinking another way to say enter, I was like, well, how many ways are, you know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
looking at it literally at first, but your poems made it very, very clear what that means. So I want to move to the poet as abandoned daughter, okay? And I want to ask you to read Making Amends, page 30. And the reason why, I mean, I was having fits over what poems I wanted to focus on from the book. And I was thinking about hopefully the people that will be watching. So many of us struggle with that relationship with the Father. And so many of our fathers are absent. And sometimes they're living right there in the house, all of our lives, and they're still absent.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't realize, sometimes even after we're grown up, that there's a reason for their absence because of their suffering and what's been going on. And so I really appreciated how you just laid it on the table without your judgment or any mess on it. You just laid it on the table. So I want you to share that piece for us.
Making amends. When my father called after 39 years of silence, I was busy picking up my children from school, asking about their day, driving them home, fixing their dinner, washing clothes, checking their homework, endless pages of homework, the baby science project, planets and stars. I was deep in the Milky Way. We were carving a sun. I was drawing electricity from a potato, the science of finding power, the source. I was washing the dishes. We were brushing our teeth, scrubbing the sour day from our tongues. Baby found a cavity, a crater of responsibility. I was kissing away the pain, making plans for tomorrow. There would be treatment, an ointment, a fix for the ache. I was busy kissing foreheads, tucking my heart between the sheets, reading stories. We were busy planting dreams in a tended garden with endless rows to till.
I heard that tended garden, right? And when I was reading the poem, I was thinking about hmm, how so many of us who have not been tended to struggle with trying to tend to others. And I was thinking about how powerful it was that you were so committed to tending, even though you weren't necessarily tended to. So I have a question that I wanted to ask you. Did your father ever see that poem?
I don't think he did.
Mhm.
A little background, my father passed away in October of last year, and it was challenging, as that is for anyone, no matter your relationship. It's complicated and it's hard and it's death. Um, but it's also it was compounded by the fact that my father is not my biological father.
Mhm.
Never met who is believed to be my biological father.
Mhm.
My father was there from when my mother was pregnant.
Mhm.
They had a relationship well, years before. And when she was pregnant, I was his. And I
Mhm.
had the best granny in the world that made sure of that in East St. Louis. So, that's my father. But it's also addressing, for me, the poem was also addressing this imagined figure, a very real person,
Mhm.
but that only lives in my imagination because I've never met him. And I've wondered, like, if that person called or
Mhm.
showed up today, what would I say or what would I do? I would continue taking care of my children.
Mhm. So, did the poem or writing the poem bring you peace? Were you able to come to peace with that?
It did. I had been for some time. I've been loved. I've been loved, and I have a beautiful family. From when I was a child to the family that I've created with my husband. I've been loved. I have given love, um, and so there really isn't any more even of a curiosity. Like, he's not someone that I couldn't meet if I wanted to.
Mhm.
I still have plenty of family who still lives in East St. Louis. They know I know what his occupation is. I
Mhm.
mean, they know where he's at.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. And my father, who, like you said, he the one I did have in my life still didn't have all the tools. I
Mhm.
have the language and the tools that we have now.
Mhm.
Um, and he was not with my mother past my youth. So it was complicated and difficult at times. But I was loved.
Mhm.
And that I will have forever. That is a gift. And so I guess for me, the poem was more a meditation on not the absence as much,
Mm.
but the power of creating. We get to take all of the information, all of the seeds and nutrients or lack thereof, and make what we will with it. We
Mhm.
still have that power. Create our families, show our love, show up, even when others didn't.
Mhm. But see, I think that's the reason why I wanted you to read that poem. And that's what's so special to me because so many of us get caught up in what we didn't have. And we're moving forward, grumbling and hurting and bruising ourselves and other people, all about what we didn't have, that we forget about the wealth that we did. And when we forget it, we can't create. You know what I mean? We can't create. And so I was thinking, and I remember thinking that when I first read the poem, I was like, she did it. She did it. She didn't have it, but she did it. She created it, right? And that was why I wanted you to read that piece because I think sometimes we use it as an excuse. Well, I didn't have so and such and such. And we use that as our excuse not to do the work and not to do the nurturing and that type of thing. And we end up losing. Oh my God, we end up losing. And so many people that we're attached to end up losing too. And so I thought it was just a beautiful, beautiful piece. So in terms of this is so such a smooth transition in terms of the love that you were able to create, do you have any idea what I want to ask you to read next?
Oh, I'm sure it's something about my sweet baby.
The Poet as Lover. I want you to read Reading in Bed, page 9, please.
Yeah.
Page 9. When I read that, it made me feel bad because I was like, oh, I haven't written a poem about my baby like this. I better get busy, right?
Write love poems. Oh, I want to tell everybody, write love poems. Write love poems for your crush. Write love poems for your exes. Write love poems for your spouse. Write love poems for your kids. Write love poems for your friends. Love poems. Just love poems. We
Why?
need them.
Why?
We need because we have love. It's easy for us to forget it. I've been doing daily affirmations. I'm very mindful that for it, especially in this pandemic, my mind, my inner voice hasn't been kind to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you could have done this during this time.
Mm-hmm.
You had all this time at home. You could have done this, that, and the third,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I've been changing how I speak to myself and starting my day with loving words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what poems are. Love poems are loving words to yourself and to others. We need more of those than
Mm-hmm.
anything else.
And I think we especially need that even more to counterbalance all of the fear, the anger, the resentment that we justifiably have. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But we can't
Absolutely.
forget about the other. And I think I have to admit, it took me, oh my God, years in my youth to finally write a real love poem because my work was so much about my therapy and my anger. You know what I mean? It was like I needed to cuss it out and work it out in a poem so I didn't hurt anybody else physically or what have you as best I could. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, it was another poet who said to me, Tamara, when are you going to write love poems? And I was like, well, I don't feel so and so and such and such and such and such. And he was like, but when you can write about love and joy with as much vigor as you can your anger and your hurt and what have you, then you're getting somewhere. And I was like, oh, you know? And I wasn't in that place where you were, where I could say, but I have love. I was focused on the things that I didn't have or the things that I saw that were not working so well. And so that idea of you reaching down to pick up the books, what have you. Anyway, okay, your sweet baby.
Balance is what we need.
Mhm.
All of the things to have access to all of our emotions as human beings is important. Reading in bed for Fabian. Books gather beside our dust ruffle. Abandoned fiction and verse comfort each other, waiting for my hand to slip down and caress their bindings. Time will wait for stories. Pages pause for me and any other, but my lover, rustling the sheets, calls for deeper reading. I thumb through his creases, practice a new tongue, our quiet oral history. Now,
Girls.
I don't know, that might be more lust than love, but
No,
I'm
baby, it's
thankful for
all
both.
mixed in there together. It's all mixed in there together, and it's fine. It's just fine. Yeah, yeah. Because there's a tenderness to it, right? There's the intellectual, there's the literary, there's the art, there's the sensual, there's the sexual, and there's that all of it wrapped up in the same poem. And that's what I love about poetry, is that in a few short lines or a few short words, there's a whole world, that we get to explore. And that's one of my favorites. So let's shift from that, the poet as lover, to the poet as hussy. The poet is hussy. Okay. So
Okay.
you know what I want you to read now, right?
I think I do. I think
Okay.
we're gonna
So
turn.
I'm going to turn myself to page 12.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, I read this out loud to my sister, who is not a poet, but who is a sister girl, right? And I said, I can't believe she just put all our stuff out there like that, Tanya. And I was like, she just aired all of those little secrets that we have. Okay, all right. And I'm really tempted because
But
I'd
the
love
thing
to
is,
read
they
this.
not secrets. He know what we're doing too. They
Yeah, but
know
we
it's
don't
an
talk about it
unspoken.
and put it in a poem, Amanda. Damn. I was like, okay, all right. So, and I'm real tempted because I really want to read this poem out loud.
You read it.
May I?
Won't you?
Okay,
Yes.
don't be mad at me if I mess it up.
No, you read it. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I'd rather read it in a poem than act it out and get in trouble in my house. Okay, so you can be my therapy for a moment, okay? All right. So, even now, a woman is doing you wrong. She is folding your pants against the crease, losing your favorite tie, the paisley one, on purpose. Sipping your bourbon mixed with Kool-Aid, napping on your side of the couch, remote hidden beneath the wrong cushion, just so you can't find it. When your game is on, she is loud on the phone, annoying you with chatter. She is talking about you, confessing everything in cold, rolling eyes and sucking teeth, daring you to look back, say something smart. Like the time your mama warned you about Southern women. Only thing sharper than her mouth is her blade. Only thing faster are the bullets in her daddy's gun. Do something dumb, like love her. Despite the moan she leaks in her sleep, ignore how her face changes when she remembers a life without you and grins. Girl, I was like, if you don't stop, if you don't, and that poem means so much to me on so many levels because it is so important to remember that we had a life before him, before them, before the children, and that life is still with us, right? And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, she just took all the dirty laundry and just was like, you know what I mean? Like right up under your nose. So I have to ask you, what moved you to write that piece? Go and say it, go and say it, go and say it.
Oh, I'm sure something happened. But, and after the annoyance or the anger or the whatever the tension is that made those little moments happen, you could look back and laugh again, as I say, because I have love, right? And my husband, he just rolls his eyes at me, he's just like, you go write that poem, do whatever, I'm gonna still do what I need to do. So we have this understanding, and it's beautiful because that's life, right? With being a partner. But writing the poem, I just wanted this moment to kind of laugh at myself, but really have this moment with my sisters, so who understand, right? So it's like, just those little unsaid things that we all know what's going on, and you done something, and we might never talk about what you done, and but this is how it's going to act up, and it's going to be all right though. like I didn't write it to be like a vengeful or an angry poem or, nothing like that. That's why it's kind of lighthearted. It's like, yeah, this might be your favorite liquor, and you're not gonna like how I'm disrespecting your liquor by mixing it with this Kool-Aid, because that's how I like to drink it. Or, like I said,
or maybe I don't even like to drink it like that, but I'm gonna drink it like that just to make you mad.
Just to mess with you, right? Or we've had those moments where you've been, yeah, I don't know, I'll speak from the eye of myself, had those moments where I've been in a completely other room of the house and here, where's the remote? I don't know, but I might have an idea. Well, I'm not going to tell you, because why are you yelling at me from the other side of the house?
Right.
It's just those little things that happen, between a couple, that might not be so funny again in the moment, but it was funny looking back on them. Those little ways that we live. But more, like I said, more than anything, for my sisters, every time I read that poem, and you read it beautifully. Thank you so much for sharing it.
I practice. Thank you.
But every time I read that, it is so funny to see the audience. Right, because a lot of times there'll be, if I'm at a live reading, there'll be couples or just that signifying, that happens. I've had to stop that poem and give folks a minute to laugh and get it out and poke at who's sitting next to them, and in that is love too, right? Even in the ending, it's like, imagine a life without you. Doesn't have to be like, I can leave you or I don't want to be with you anymore. It's like you said, I'm a whole person that was somebody before you met me.
Right.
And I remember what that, like, just that kind of like, I still got it. Don't tell me I don't have, I still got it. I know what I was then and what I am now. And it's just a fun little ribbon. Just a little ribbon.
So there are actually two words that are in that poem that, how do I want to say, really give it another depth for me. Maybe even one word. Now. Even now. And it may seem like a little thing, but I guess to me as a poet, knowing that that's the title, the simple fact that you say now, which means there has been a duration and we're still going and we're still doing it. But don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? But we are still here, because it's not like it's a woman scorned speaking. It's the woman that is still loving now, right? That makes it so beautiful and that makes it so fun. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's so many people who have no idea. It's like all kinds of women are in that one poem. And you don't even know that somebody's written about you. You know what I mean? You don't even know that you can pick up this book and read it. And maybe just because of reading it and having that little moment with Amanda, it'll keep you from cussing your husband out or doing something that you had. You know what I'm saying? It really is. I consider poetry to be a very sacred space. And you do that so well. It's a very sacred space where we come to just be and bring all of our stuff with it, and we can leave it there. So like, you can leave a lot of stuff right there in that poem and then walk away a little bit lighter. And I love that. I love that. So we're going to shift gears for just a minute, just a minute, and go the opposite direction. I want us to move to page 27, What We Dare Say. And in my notes, I called this the poet as mother slash activist, honoring the soul of the victims and the perpetrator. That's what I put in my notes. And I wanted to ask you before reading it, if you would just, for those who may not know, share a tiny bit of the background of the real story behind the poem.
Sure. So March 6, 2014, there was a woman here in Texas who drove a car out into the Gulf, into the water. Here you can drive on the beach, in different parts of the coast, and she drove her kids out there, going to kill them, and it was all over the news, and I saw that. And of course, it's terrifying, right? Anytime something like that happens, but there's also a recognition. There was a recognition for me that it gets hard, and you don't know what is there for your kids or for you.
Mhm.
And I was also thinking again, like I can, not that I would condoning something like that, but understanding.
Mhm.
And that's something that people don't ever want to think, a woman could be so hurting, so desperate, so alone, whatever it was, you know, to have come to that as a conclusion, as a you know a some kind of end to her pain,
Mhm.
um, and theirs. So still don't know what was behind that action, but I did I did see that women struggle with a lot,
Mhm.
and if we don't start speaking to that and providing support,
Mhm.
real support. Like it's one thing to put up a phone number and say, call this number if you need help,
Mhm.
right? It's another thing to understand I can't get off the floor. My kid, and if I'm gone, my kids are going to be left with who
Mhm.
and how? And maybe it's just better if I take them with me.
Mhm.
Like not, and again, those are assumptions I'm making. I don't know the whole case, but I do know that level, how dark that can be, and that's a real issue
Mhm.
that people and women, mothers, deal with.
Mhm. I do want to say really quickly, before you read, you said something about women being desperate, women with this, that, and the other, and what have you. But no one really, and a lot of people will talk about that in all kinds of ways, women included. But nobody really wants to have a serious conversation about how women are unsupported.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about that. How can we better support you? And it that blame and putting all of that responsibility shows up in all kinds of ways.
Right.
For example, when a relationship breaks up, a lot of the time people will look at the woman, well, what did you do? That type of thing. And that is in so many areas of our culture. And when I read that piece, I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm so glad that somebody else feels that way. Because whenever I see a story like that in the news, yes, you're not making excuses, but yes, there's that part of you that goes, baby, I know. You know what I mean? That type of
There's
thing. And
something
that's
more.
right. And that's what
There's
we
something
don't talk
more. You
about.
didn't wake up this morning
Mhm.
and decide to kill your children.
Mhm.
There was something more,
Mhm.
lifetimes of something more
Mhm.
that built up to that. And that's that repair work, that's that deep work, that's that blood work, community work that
Mhm.
we have to do. We
Mhm.
have to find spaces and be able to see, like when your circles, I'm loved. I'm
Mhm.
loved. And when I am low, there are people close to me who know this is not just a moment where she's being quiet. I'm gonna show up. I'm
Mhm.
gonna be there, and I'm so thankful for that. And I want that for everyone. And and in return, I'll be there for them.
Mhm.
It's like give people space. Some people, it's like feels like a burden or an overwork to think about having to do all this. This ain't a job. But when you got people you love,
Mhm.
check up on them. It could have been that simple. Again, I don't know all the details, but it could have been that simple.
Mhm.
That what if someone had just showed up?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I'll read the what we dare not say. March 6, 2014. Mom drives van, 3 kids into waves. A woman breaks. We do not cry. We know this familiar hysteria. Unconditional motherhood could be driving your young into the sea so the salt of drowning cuts the thick brine waiting inland.
The thick brine waiting inland. Yeah. That poem to me is it's a prayer. It's a prayer. So thank you for writing it. Um, yeah, it's a prayer. So I want to shift again, and we're going to have to wrap up in a little bit. So I thought I would go to the poet as I had a section where I was thinking about the poet as shaman and spiritualist, because I was thinking about the poem about the birthing the spirit and deciding to stay. But I realized as I was listening to you read What We Dare Not Say, that was also the poet as shaman and the spiritualist, seeing so much deeper and seeing all of the layers. So I want to shift to poet as fan, right? And who you're a fan of. And I notice you have influences from Toni Morrison, Lucille Clifton, and Gwendolyn Brooks in here. And so I wanted to ask you to close with I Embrace You after Joy Harjo. If you'd read that for us.
Certainly. I embrace you after Joy Harjo. I embrace you, my difficult and bright yellow joy. I embrace you. You are my dusk and dawn anew. I know you, my reflection, my face. I embrace you with arms I would open to a lover and a friend. You are my beating heart. I take you for the innocent who scream happiness loud as cannon fire. I take you in my mouth. Clean water runs through my veins. I embrace you, joy, as you were born in my likeness, through hands' welcoming touch. I embrace you, I embrace you, I embrace you. I am not afraid to know sorrow. I am not afraid to feel pain. I am not afraid to laugh. I am not afraid to sing. I am not afraid to be other. I am not afraid to be here. I am not afraid to be light. I am not afraid to dance, to dance, to dance. Joy, you have spun me and I showed you my waist. You have held me and I released all my weight. You have cried with me and I watch our water join. I give myself to you, joy. You are the light on my face, the magic behind my eyes, my ears, my voice, my belly, my heart, my heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. Come here, joy. I am alive, and you are the reason why.
Wow. Wow. And all of that is in this teeny tiny little black and white book. It's like it's a whole universe unto itself, and it's all of it, right? And I was thinking as you were reading about how much easier it is to enter into a door of sorrow or a door of fear or a door of whatever, when you also know how to carry your joy with you and you never lose sight of it. So thank you.
Sometimes that's the scarier part,
Mm, how so?
believing that we deserve it.
Mm,
All of this.
hmm
When you say, the joy and the love, we look at Black women and people say strong.
hmm
People say, determined, or people say angry, or again, rightfully so. But those are the monikers that we get.
hmm
Um, Joyful, deserving of joy, deserving of love. You know, Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're entitled to those things. There's too much work to do.
hmm
How can I just sit here and enjoy this afternoon coolness and light? And how can I enjoy this nap without feeling guilty that I'm taking care of myself and not doing the dishes? How can I spend this money on myself to have this little thing, no matter what it costs? It just made me happy.
hmm
I can't sing, but I sing.
hmm
Who cares if you think I can dance? Let's cut a rug. Let's go, baby.
hmm
We deserve those things too. And sometimes it's harder for us to say yes to those. And I don't want to be afraid to do that. I want to welcome that in. So the poem actually after Joy, I was just thinking about Joy this morning. She was my first faculty mentor in grad school.
Oh, wow.
Our U.S. Poet Laureate, as you know, third for the third term, which is almost unheard of, which is beautiful. I'm so happy to have her continue as our U.S. Poet Laureate. But being able to work with her privately, intimately, in that first semester of work meant everything to me. And when I was blocked with my writing, one of the things she had me do was to turn to her poem, I Release You, which is a releasing of fear, right? So I sat with that poem, and the question I kept coming back to for myself was, well, once we release the fear, what's next? What's on the other side? And it's just beautiful that it's her name as well. A tribute to her and an appreciation for making the space to enter into that joy.
And I think that's the thing. I think we have to claim that there is something on the other side, and that there, no matter what, we're going to find something on the other side that works for us, or like Black women always do, we'll find a way to make it work. But I have a suggestion. I was thinking about it as you were talking. I think we are the joy. We are the joy, because joy don't show up in certain ways until we walk in.
Yes.
And I think that's like the next level. I think one level is to realize that we deserve it and start working on it. And then I think the next level, which I don't think I've gotten to yet, but I'd like to get there one of these days when I grow up, is to understand that I am the joy. I don't care what you say or what you think, but I am the joy. That's one of the reasons why I was created, you know?
Yes.
So thank you so much for taking your time to be here out of all of the places you could be and all of the things that you've been doing. And I really, really hope that some people who think that their stories might not be heard or considered, I hope that they see that this is one of the ways that their stories are, you know, because these are so many women, so many men, so many children, all in this one little dynamite book. And I mean, I believe that a lot of poetry is scripture, and that is a very sacred space, and that we need to pick it up more often. So thank you for being here and for being such an inspiration and a motivation. See, one of the things that I love about doing this is that I can just go ahead on and be a fan. You know what I mean? I don't have to be academic. I don't have to do any of that other stuff. I can just be a fan and do what I love. And I can take other people on at least part of the journey that a piece of art took me on, you know? So I love doing that. So folks, any closing words that you want to share before I give you some props with some other things?
Oh man, I'm so happy to be. This has been beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to sit and closely with my work, so closely with the work. I feel it, and that's important. That was very generous of you to take so much time on my work. So thank you, and to everyone watching this, thank you so much for supporting poetry, supporting spaces where we can do this work and share the work. I know you are buying the work. This is how we show up for each other. And I know during this pandemic, it's hard, even in a box, even on a laptop. You know, there's 50,000 things happening online now virtually because of this pandemic, and that doesn't change the amount of energy that one person has. So thank you for showing up and supporting and watching us today. I hope you'll continue to watch.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Folks, if you like what you saw and what you experienced here, we ask that you hit that like button, that you share it with somebody who not only loves poetry, but maybe somebody that just simply needs a little bit of inspiration. We welcome you sharing that. We ask that you also support the poet's events, workshops, readings, whatever. Buy the book, share the book, give the book to somebody as a gift. Amanda also has a book called Guap and a book called Lock and Key. We're going to be sure to put ways to contact her and find her website in the comment section so you will see all of that. And in the meantime, I just want to remind people to stay safe and stay well. And remember that a poem just might be the thing that inspires you, that helps you to go a little bit further, and it may even save your life. So thank you for showing up and being here.